All right, college football playoff time. We got a lot to discuss here coming up. The college football kickoff show powered by WagerTalk.com. Shout out to those of you joining us here on this Friday. It's about to get a little crazy, as they say, as those first round games coming up a week from today. We're going to touch base on a few of those matchups. We did have a chance to talk to Dave Mason from Bet Online a little earlier on Wager Talk today. I would highly encourage you guys to check that episode out, as they posted look-ahead lines for the scenarios here with the 4 number 1 seeds. Some good information there, interesting information there about what would happen if which team wins and what would the lines be in that next round. But in the meantime, we got 3 of the best here at Wager Talk that are going to talk some college football bowl games, including big game tomorrow between Army and Navy, as we welcome in the man who refuses to lose, Ross Benjamin in the house. Bryan, Leonard, ready to go. Cat in arms, I believe. Cat's got a lot to say today, so we're also going to check in with her. And TC, Teddy Covers, ready to rock. So, Ross, let me start with you here, my man, because we've actually, throughout the season, you've talked about Syracuse. You've had your finger on the pulse of this team a lot throughout the season, and now we've got them in a bowl game against Washington State. So break it down for us here. What do you think of this game?
You know, I very rarely show my cards early when it comes to the bowl season for various reasons I'm sure you could figure out. But by the same token, we're looking at a Syracuse team that comes in 9-3, coming off a huge win against Miami, which virtually eliminated Miami from the college football playoff. They have no significant players that have opted out, nor have they lost in the transfer portal. They lost 9 guys in the transfer portal. One of them started 5 games. But other than that, their starters and their depth players are all going to play. And that's always a key thing to look at when we handicap college football bowl games. Right now, I mean, this line went from 5.5 to 7.5 as soon as the news came out that Kyle McCord was going to play. And I'll say this, and Teddy's probably sick of hearing this because he's heard it from me before. Kyle McCord, to me, is the most underrated quarterback in college football, and I would like Ohio State's chances to win the national championship a lot more with him than who they have right now. Why do I say that? 280 yards plus passing in all 12 games this year. He leads the nation with over 4,000 yards in passing. So in Syracuse, you look at their schedule, they had some nice wins this year. Not only did they knock off Miami, they also beat UNLV, who's nationally ranked, on the road. They also beat a pretty good Georgia Tech team that's a lot better than their 7-5 record indicates. Remember, that's a Georgia Tech team that took Georgia to 8 overtimes and also beat Clemson, 2 teams that are participant in the playoffs. And also the fact that this is a team that really could rack up a lot of offense. They're very talented. Washington State, on the other hand, look, considering the hand they were dealt, and they've had a great year. They started out the season 8-1. Their only loss in that sequence came at Boise State by 21 points. But what bothers me here, Joe, going into this bowl game, they finished the season 0-3 straight up in ATS. All 3 losses against losing teams, all 3 losses as a double-digit favorite. So they don't exactly come into this matchup with a lot of momentum. So I am going to lay to 7.5. I'd love to get a 7 here, but 7. I'm not going to let the 7.5 bother me. I'm pretty confident this is a play I'm going to use as a pick for my clients. So you're getting the benefit of getting it here right now today. Syracuse minus 7.5 over Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, Ross, I'm looking, they lost to New Mexico by 3. They lost to Oregon State by 3. They lost to Wyoming by 1. My goodness, the head games that must be happening right now with Washington State is absolutely crazy here. So Syracuse, Washington State, the 27th of December is what we are looking there. 8 o'clock at Snapdragon Stadium there, I believe, in beautiful San Diego. So bowl game number one here on the show, up and ready to roll. Let's talk about another one coming up rather quickly tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern time, as Bryan, Leonard, South Alabama, taking on Western Michigan. I guess the big news here, Bryan, is what? South Alabama's quarterback coming back next year. You never know. I guess maybe that's a positive these days, because you never know who's going to be there week to week. Western Michigan, maybe not as concrete as far as who's there, who's not there. Looks like the money has been coming in on South Alabama. Do you agree with that? Is there any value the other way in this one?
Actually, I think it opened at 11, and it's been bet down to 8. So the money's been coming in on the dog. And I can understand that, being that it's a situation where underdogs have done very well in the early games. But I'm fading this line move. I don't like it. I don't understand it. When I take a look at this, I clearly see that one team is better than the other. South Alabama's down to 7.5, 8 now, and I'm a buyer at that number. I made this line 11. So I'm fading the line move. And South Alabama, a team that averages just short of 35 points per game, but you really should throw out that 87-10 win over Northwestern State, which will really drop those offensive numbers. But speaking of the offense, they've started to pick it up near the end of the season. The last few games, they scored 38, 35, 24, 30, and 46 points the last 5 games. So they're coming into their own offensively. They've got a terrific running game that averages 5.64 yards per carry. Defensively, they've only allowed 17 passing touchdowns while intercepting 15 passes. You rarely see that kind of defense in a smaller conference like what they play in here. So the Jaguars have held 8 opponents to 27 points or less. I think they'll have a lot of success defensively against Western Michigan. Western Michigan is in a bowl despite being outscored on the season in what I consider to be the worst conference in college football, and that's the MAC. And I've followed the MAC for years. They just have not been very good. And in fact, they have not done well for the most part in bowl games. So I like to fade them. The Broncos needed a victory in their regular season finale to become bowl eligible. They only own 2 road wins on the season, at Ball State and Buffalo, teams that I have ranked 126th and 106th in the country. Western's had far better bowl teams than this one over the years. And as I mentioned, the early bowl games tend to be underdog heavy, but I don't want any part of this Western Michigan team. I will lay what I consider the bargain price with South Alabama. Hey, we may end up seeing this get down to 7. That'd be even better. But I want no part of the MAC in this early game.
Yeah, it's interesting here. Question marks surrounding South Alabama quarterback, which running backs are playing, couple of guys in the transfer portal there. Teddy, I know you looked at this game too. What was the big love you think with Western Michigan in the marketplace early on here? Just too many question marks for the market to lay that kind of number?
So the betting markets don't love teams like South Alabama in bowl games laying double digits. And we just saw, I mean, it got hit right from the open and got bet all the way down to 7. And then from the 7, we've seen the money start coming for South Alabama, 7.5 and 8 that we're seeing right now. So, I mean, really, that was probably one group off the opener. I'm not going to call it a broad move towards Western Michigan. It was just they're like, hey, South Alabama's not a double-digit favorite, which is probably true. And the markets are holding, saying South Alabama's not a double-digit favorite, which, of course, doesn't mean they can't win by doubles tonight. Or tomorrow night.
Amen to that. Tomorrow night should be a good one there as we're kicking off bowl season. And I mean, you always, this time of year, Teddy, there are trends and then there's Army Navy. And this is one hell of a game, man. One that usually lands well below 40 points. It seems to me like that seems to be the biggest discretion. We talked with our friends at the Westgate during the week, Art the Caesar and company. It seems to be a battle. It goes up, it goes down. It's being bet up, it's being bet down. It's being bet up, it's being bet down. Where do you land on this game coming up here tomorrow as far as a total or even a side goes?
So, and we talk about why it's getting bet up. It's getting bet up because it looks like Blake Corbett's going to play for Navy. They're starting quarterback. And every time you see a starting quarterback that's likely to play, you'll usually see over money that correlates with that. That being said, if there's ever a no-brainer bet, Army Navy is a no-brainer bet. This is all I'm going to do for my analysis. I mean, I could do this analysis in 1 minute, but let's just start with this. These are the final scores of the last 10 games between Army and Navy. They play every year this weekend. 17-11, 20-17 double OT, 17-13, 15-0, 31-7, 17-10, 14-13, 21-17, 21-17 again, and 17-10. Okay. In none of the last 8 meetings have they gotten above 38 points. In none of the last 8 meetings have they gotten to combined 600 yards. You look at the yardage totals: 284 to 153, 278 to 232, 117 to 162, 396 to 148. You're not seeing any game where the two offenses are marching up and down the field. And that makes perfect sense. Why? They both play the same style. It's a unique style. When you talk about option football, not a lot of teams play it. So when these two teams face opponents in regular season, everyone's got to prep for it. When you're facing these two teams are facing one another, it's not the same defensive challenge. The other thing that happens when you're playing option football, the clock runs and runs and runs as the teams are running and running and running. You know, clock doesn't stop for first downs. Clock doesn't stop for out of bounds outside of 5 minutes. All this stuff bodes well for long, slow, methodical drives that end in field goals. Yeah. This is in my mind as no-brainer as it gets. All right. I'm not trying to handicap the side. I'm not trying to do anything that hasn't been done before. We're riding the prevailing trend between these two teams, and it's a trend that makes sense. It's cashing because it makes sense. Under 39 is the way we're going to look in this one. That's the only choice that I've got for Army Navy, and it's I can't imagine trying to bet it the other way.
Yeah, I can't see any. Everyone's been making a lot of the passing offenses here, but if you consider 8 passes a lot of game, that's basically what you've gotten from Army this year. So they continue to do the things on the ground, Teddy, and run the ball, and this means so much to these two teams. And the only thing they can agree on is they're laughing at Air Force right now, but we'll see how long that continues there, as Army Navy are going to be a big focus tomorrow as we get ready, of course, next week for the college football playoff here. And we've got a ton of bowl games coming up, and right now the opportunity to partner up with Ross Benjamin or Bryan Leonard or Teddy Covers for just $149. I would suggest you take advantage of it, guys, because these three have been the best when it comes to bowl season here. All three guys extremely profitable over the years at this time, and to be able to get an all-access package and never miss a bowl game right through the national championship, pretty good deal for $149 right now. All three of these guys will tell you what they have locked and loaded already coming up, but I do want to start with a couple of roundtable questions from the chat room regarding these playoff games that are coming up. And Ross, I'll start with you because, boy, oh boy, are there seems to be an awful lot of public favorite teams here. I don't think a lot of people, maybe you don't follow college football, even know what the hell SMU is. But yet here they are taking on a team everybody knows in the public darlings in Penn State. So interesting matchup, not one that we're used to getting, but yet both of these teams have qualified to play for a national championship. Which one advances, do you think?
I think Penn State advances, but I don't know if they're going to cover. I just think, I don't know if this is going to be too big for SMU. And why I say that is, look, they're going into a cold weather environment, number one. They are going to be playing before 100,000 fans in Happy Valley, one of the toughest environments to play in all of college football. And I don't know how they're going to react because we haven't seen them have to react in these types of situations. Playing in Charlotte in the ACC championship game against Clemson. It's a hell of a lot different than going on the road and playing before a biased audience of over 100,000 fans. So, I mean, I would say Penn State, I like them to advance. I'm more of the opinion that I might have a small lean right now toward the over in this game, although both teams have very good defensive numbers. I think SMU could score on anybody. They showed that last week against Clemson. And Penn State, when they, again, SMU's defense is statistically good, but they haven't played the caliber opponent they're about to face on Saturday, or if they advance in the rest of the college football playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's it. Well, I mean, we've heard Bryan all year long about Coach Franklin. Oh, his record against top 5 teams is it's terrible. Well, I guess the good news is SMU is not a top 5 team, but I'm not quite sure that that's going to mean anything here. But what do you think? Do we trust Penn State? And we know he watches the scoreboard and knows the spread. What do you think happens in this one?
I think I learned my lesson in the last game when Teddy and I went head to head on this one. They just every time the game got close and you thought they had a chance, then they would give up another score. I don't want any part of Penn State here. I only made the line 6, so I lean with SMU here. The Mustangs have 2 losses on the season versus BYU and Clemson by a combined 6 points. They've been in every game they played. Those were the only 2 ranked teams that they faced, unfortunately, but they've outscored the opposition by 17.7 points per game on the season, despite breaking even in turnovers. That tells you a lot. That means that they didn't win because of their turnovers. They were able to win despite not getting the turnover advantage, and that's something I always take a look at. Penn State outscored their opponents by a similar 17.2 points per game. They did face the 3 ranked teams. They did beat Illinois by 14 and lost to Ohio State by 7 and Oregon by 8. They're a very good team, and if they're in the underdog role, it's a team I want. But both teams enter the tournament off of losses, but I don't want Penn State here. As you said, they're more of a known commodity, so you're going to have to pay a little bit more for that. And I just have not seen them making a constant living the last few years, laying points against quality football teams. So I'm leaning with SMU in this game, and I may end up using it on my card.
Oh, all right. Teddy, let me ask you, because we talked to Dave Mason on Wager Talk today earlier, and he gave me the look-ahead line. Penn State, if they advance, would lay 11.5 against Boise State. SMU would lay 6.5 against Boise State. I keep hearing, Teddy, how, Boise State, this is ridiculous. What an easy path for Penn State. I don't know that it's going to be all that easy. And how do you look at this matchup the way we do, like almost a March Madness type of bracket here? What are we going to get here in this first game between them?
So it's important to note, this is not a March Madness bracket. The number 1 seeds in college basketball tend to be the 4 best teams in the country. Certainly, You're not going to see a team that's not a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed in college basketball. You can make any case for being the best team in the country. Whereas here in bowl season, with the playoffs, the top 4 seeds are a little bit more randomized. All right. Arizona State, on paper, is not one of the top 4 teams in the country. Neither is Boise. In fact, when we look at power numbers, neither one of them is a top 10 team in the country. Nonetheless, they are high seeds. They get the benefit, in theory, of which is completely different from the big dance in March. So the seeding here, I mean, in some ways, I find it much less meaningful.
I'm with you.
No matter what path any of these teams take to a title, you're going to have to go through some quality competition. All right. And I certainly look at the second round matchups. All right. Where when you look at the bracket, it's advantage for the likes that the Tennessee Ohio State winner going to have to face Oregon.
Right.
Oops.
Yep.
Whereas Clemson Texas winner gets Arizona State. Huge edge for Clemson Texas winner. Similarly, in the other matchup, Notre Dame Indiana versus Georgia, that could be a pick'em type game. Whereas, as you mentioned, doesn't matter if it's SMU or Penn State, Boise State's going to be a pretty big dog. So there's a significant disparity, power rating wise, between the top 2 seeds and the bottom 2 seeds of the top 4, and that'll play out on the field. That being said, I wouldn't sell Boise State short.
Teddy, I'm with you here, man. I mean, I think we in the marketplace, and you guys can speak to it here, but it just feels like, especially in those 2 sides of the brackets, where I'm looking at Arizona State as almost a 2-touchdown look-ahead dog if Texas wins, a 4.5-point dog if Clemson wins, and yet they're sitting at home this week, relaxed and getting healthy, going, all right, let's see who it is we're going to play. I think the Notre Dame, the Georgia and Indiana situation here, where Georgia's sitting and waiting, Indiana and Notre Dame have to go at it. Let me ask you, Ross, Notre Dame look ahead would only be about a 1.5 point favorite over Georgia, while Georgia would be a 5.5 point favorite over Indiana. Who do you think ultimately faces them here in this one?
I think Notre Dame will get through. I just think based on just the leniency in the schedule that Indiana has faced this year. Now, Notre Dame hasn't faced exactly a brutal schedule, but still they got a couple quality wins, starting with their opening game at Texas A&M, never easy to win in College Station. And you look at even their wins against Navy and Army. More times than not, when we talk about a win against Navy and Army in past years, we never bother to mention it because they're not quality wins. Well, Army's 12-1, Navy's 9-3. They played Navy when they were ranked at that time. Army is currently ranked. I'm not saying neither one of those teams are the caliber of what they're about to face, but they've still played a tougher schedule than Indiana. Both of these teams are very good defensively. I just think Notre Dame gets through. I'm not willing to go out on a limb this early and take a side here. I am a little surprised because the sources I use in terms of the betting splits when it comes to percentage of bets and percentage of money bet on this game, what I look at, my particular favorite place to look at shows a lot of money going on Indiana in this spot. So, again, they seem to be the underdog darling right now. And that shocks me because Notre Dame, like the Dallas Cowboys, always a public favorite, right? So, in any event, I'm not willing to go out on a limb at this point right now on the side. If I had any kind of early lean, it would be possibly on the under right here. But other than that, I don't have a lot to add in terms of this game at this point.
Trendy dog, Indiana seems to be. And, Bryan, it happens to be the only side of this bracket in which Georgia, with one winner, is a dog, and they're a favorite if they play the other situation. We look ahead, we have clear favorites in everyone, no matter who wins, there's clear favorites. Not so much in this one. Notre Dame would be the favorite over Georgia, but Georgia less than a touchdown favorite over Indiana. How close is Indiana and Notre Dame, do you think?
Well, to start off with Georgia, that's a team that's flummoxed all of us all season long. So we've seen the best and the worst out of Georgia, and you can expect anything in between.
Yep.
I made this game 9, so I'm leaning with the Irish here. Indiana enters played 11-1, but this is just the second-ranked team they've played on the year. The other was that 23-point loss at Ohio State. In fact, you can make a case that every opponent on Indiana's card this year had a disappointing season. Indiana does a nice job of stopping the run. They allow 2.46 yards per carry, but they'll be tested in this one. The passing game was terrific with a 179.07 quarterback rating, a 31-5 touchdown to interception ratio, but they do have a plus 15 turnover advantage. And we talked about that a little bit with the SMU breaking even on the season. I think the plus 15 turnover advantage went a long way into Indiana having that success this season. As was mentioned, the Irish didn't have their usual tough schedule. Only A&M, Louisville, Georgia Tech, and the military teams really played up to their preseason expectations. But every victory was by 7 points or more. So they haven't been involved with many close games. Obviously, the loss to Northern Illinois, a major blemish on their record on the season. But overall, they've been very consistent with a running game that produces a whopping 6.3 yards per carry. They'll be by far the toughest ground game the Hoosiers have played all season long. Defensively, they have a 9-17 touchdown to interception ratio, so they should match up pretty good with this Indiana impressive passing attack, and which is on another level considering Indiana has played such a weak card. I like the Irish here. I'd prefer to lay the 7 over the 7.5. Maybe we'll get that as time goes on. But they've proven more to me than Indiana. Indiana's been a nice story, but and the head coach just won Coach of the Year. It's been a really good season for Indiana. I think it ends in this contest against Notre Dame.
And Teddy, here you are. If you're Georgia, you're like, wait a minute. Well, I'm a favorite over Indiana, but I'm a dog if I'm playing Notre Dame. Give me Indiana, which, listen, has unbelievable season. But this defense of Notre Dame is a lot like the quality of defense they saw in Ohio State. It didn't work out all that well there in the Ohio State game. Does Indiana, with a little extra time, maybe have a better shot of competing offensively against this Notre Dame defense than they did Ohio State?
Well, let's look at some hard numbers. All right. Indiana has faced a grand total of 2 teams all year with a winning record. 2. All right. In those 2 games, all right, the Hoosiers averaged less than 200 yards per game on offense. That would be ranked dead last, 133rd among college football teams if you're ranking them for the full season. Yards per play in those 2 games, only 2 against teams with a winning record. That was Michigan and Ohio State. All right. 3.4 yards per play. That's also ranked 133rd, dead last. Sacks. Well, they were sacked 9 times in those 2 ball games. Indiana is a team we can trust to beat up on lesser foes. We do not trust Indiana to step up in class against good foes. It's Notre Dame or pass for this better. Clear as
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Notre Dame or pass for Teddy in this one. And we've got one other game, I think, which is fascinating here because, Ross, let me go to you. They're betting this game as if they already know what the result is. Texas taking on Clemson, and it's crazy enough. These 2 schools have never played one another in football. It's kind of crazy that they've actually never faced one another in the history of the programs. But here we are with Clemson now, obviously a huge dog against Texas, and they're playing with house money, aren't they, Ross? I mean, call me crazy, Dabo with house money. I don't know. How do you approach this game?
You know, here's the thing. Here's what I will say right from the get-go. Texas is not going to win a national championship with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. Ewers, whatever his pronunciation is.
Thank you.
The guy is not a championship quality quarterback. Now, I understand he's playing on a bum ankle, but I watched him against quality competition this year, and nothing tells me that he's going to step up to the plate in big moments. Having said that, I think Texas's defense is certainly championship caliber. However, Clemson, you're right. They're playing with house money. They get in with a 9-3. They get to the ACC championship game with a 9-3 record. They blow a 17-point lead in the 4th quarter against SMU. Kid kicks a 56-yard field goal to win the game for Clemson. And they're playing, like you said, I mean, they lose their last regular season game against South Carolina, but they get into the ACC title game because Miami loses to Syracuse. So, again, they got nothing to lose. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of experts, so-called experts anyway, are certainly going to have Texas as one of their favorites to get to the championship game. I'm not one of them. I'm going to take the points here. I just think that Clemson, their pedigree, their coaching pedigree, their coaching staff pedigree will do enough to at least stay inside this number against the Longhorns. I'm not convinced with Texas's offense. I don't like their starting quarterback. I do like Cade Klubnik from Clemson. I think Clemson has an advantage in the quarterback department. So say what you feel, Ross.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, Ross. Trust me, I hear you. You and I are on the same page. And it's crazy enough that these two quarterbacks, by the way, battled each other in the Texas State Championship in high school, too, as well. So both Klubnik and Quinn Ewers go way back. And yet there's a Manning on that roster that's sitting there for what reason, I have no idea. I'm with you there. Bryan, Leonard, let me ask you here. Does a team, they say I'd rather be lucky than good. Is Clemson lucky? Are they good? Are they good enough to stay within this number? I mean, what do you do when a team just seems to get everything going their way?
Yeah, I've watched all the Clemson games all season long. I've watched them probably the last decade. Wife's a big Clemson fan, relatives and all. Clemson's not very good this year. It's been a down season. They only faced 3 ranked teams on the year. Georgia, South Carolina, and SMU, and they were outscored by a combined 31 points in those 3 games. They only managed 17 points per game against Georgia, South Carolina, SMU. I'm not a Klubnik fan. I thought he was going to be. I read all the press clippings when he was supposed to be coming to Clemson. Was very excited. I haven't seen anything. Last year he was terrible. This year he's better this year than he was last year, but still he's not a team that's going to lead a team to the Final Four. Texas could be the premier defensive team in college football. Ross talked about it. This defense has been terrific. They only allow 12.5 points per game, but other than Vanderbilt and Texas A&M, every other team they played has underperformed this year, including the likes of Michigan, Mississippi State, Florida, Kentucky. The only ranked team they faced was Georgia. They lost twice to Georgia. My numbers say the line is right here. I've seen the teams play. I think Texas wins, but I don't know if I can lay this type of number with Texas, even against a Clemson team who I think has taken a step back from what they've been in the last few years. It's too close to the number for me to maybe take a look at the under based on what has happened. Maybe Clemson team total under or the full game under is probably the better way to look at this one.
Teddy, I mean, the look ahead here for Arizona State's hilarious. Arizona State's going to be getting 14 against Texas, or they're going to be getting 4.5, 5 against Clemson. And like Boise State, I don't know anybody wanting to run into Arizona. Every time somebody's running Arizona State, they somehow seem to win the damn game. But Clemson, man, how do you handicap a team, Teddy, that right place, right time, see to get everything rolls their way? So are they good enough at this point to at least stay within the number, if not win outright?
No. I don't think so. I mean, look, when we look at Clemson stepping up in class this year, okay, you're not seeing a lot, and what you're seeing isn't pretty. All right. They played Georgia. You remember that opening day, and they were non-competitive in defeat. They had Louisville at home. I guess that's a competitive game. It's one of the only games they weren't favored by double digits in. They lost that game by double digits at home as well. South Carolina at home. Offense doesn't work. Defense collapses down the stretch. Lose that game outright at home. I am not a Clemson believer, okay? And I will most likely be advising my clients not to be Clemson believers either, for what that's worth.
Unbelievable what's going on in that game, guys. Don't forget to make sure you smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already as we get ready for the college football playoffs here. First 12-team playoff in college football here. There's one other game we're going to break down for you guys, and it involves the SEC versus the Big Ten. But first, I want to go around the horn here quick. And Ross, I want to start with you. 149 right now. I can get every one of your college bowl game picks right through the national championship. So if I head to your page, are we locked, loaded on a couple of them already?
No, I'm not one who posts real early on college football bowl games, but I will have a lot up this weekend in terms of the upcoming week. However, why should you buy that 149 package from me? Well, let me tell you why, Joe. 134.93 in college football since November 26th of 2022. 59% win rate, over $9,500 in profit according to our grading system. That's the number one money earner in college football at WagerTalk over the last 2 years. This year I'm 49-35, just 58%, really slumping. And also number one in money earned at the present moment in college football. This year, 59-38 run in college football since December 26th of last year. That's 62%. And over the last two bowl seasons, including the playoffs, 26-15. That's good for 63%, over $4,400 in profit. And you know what? Anytime you're number one at a site like WagerTalk with the caliber handicappers that are on that site, including Bryan and Teddy, who are icons in this industry, two guys I really look up to, it's something to hang your hat on. And I'm very proud of that. And we're going to continue that throughout the college football bowl season.
Oh, I love it. 149 over at Ross's page. Bryan, Leonard, how about you? Anything lock-loaded bowl-wise here for folks? And what do they expect during your bowl season?
58% winners. Is that all you got?
Yeah, right? Jeez.
You've been terrific, and congratulations on coming to the site. You've just been really good in that regard. Yeah, people don't realize what 58% can make you if you're betting on a consistent basis. Very much like Russ, I don't put up my plays too far in advance. Years in the past, I did that, and now it's even harder to do with all the players leaving, going from one school to another. I want to know who's playing, who's going to be there. Are the coaches looking for other jobs? It's something you've got to stay up on by reading about it. And so when I do put up a play, it'll be a day or two or three before the games actually get played. But today up on my site, I don't have anything other than one college basketball play. Been red hot in college basketball, going for a 7th straight winner. It's up on the site today. So if you're looking to buy my bowl package, just get everything. Because college basketball, NBA, hockey, you've got everything out there. We've got a lot of great specials. But it's a situation for me where I am going to concentrate more as the season goes on, and you get to place a little bit later than you would from some other guys.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Teddy, there's a lot of we try to avoid variance as best as possible, but this time of year in bowl games, you ain't got nothing but variance, so you want to try to eliminate it as best as possible. But the good news, Teddy, is that you lock yourself in. I know I'm getting it, so I don't need it today for a bowl game in a week and a half or 2 weeks. So, I will get the play for 149. And every play, in fact, that you post from here all throughout the national championship. You can also get an all-access pass 10 days for $99, Teddy, which includes everything. So the choice is really yours. What do you got for your clients over at WagerTalk?
Yeah, we hit 70% in December college football last year. So we made some money for the clients, looking to do it again in 2024. Like Ross and Bryan, this is not a scenario where we're putting out plays way in advance. You can't do that anymore in college bowl season. So you get the plays a day or two ahead of time. But that's just how it's going to work in the modern bowl era. I am locked and loaded with a 5% big ticket in the NFL this weekend, 45-26 since 2018 with those 5% big tickets in the NFL. I'm on a 6-2. 75% run with 5% big tickets across sports. So we're locked and loaded for the weekend. I've got NBA action for tonight. I got NBA Cup action. And like Bryan, my college hoops have been really good as well. 74% dating back to last March. I think it's 29-10 college basketball, running off to a 67% start this season. So we're making money right now. Check out my page, wt.buzz/TC, and get on board with one of these packages.
No reason, guys. No reason not at all to make it a very profitable couple of weeks here as we head into the holidays and bowl season and the race for a national championship. And maybe one of these next two here in the final game we'll talk about The Big Ten versus the SEC. Tennessee taking on Ohio State. And Ross, congratulations, Oregon, for getting the number 1 seed. Because your ass gets to play either Ohio State again or Tennessee here. And the SEC is never going to be an easy out. And I'll say this, the look-ahead line for this game here, Oregon, a 1.5-point favorite versus Ohio State, a 4.5-point favorite against Tennessee. This is not as easy as I think Ohio State fans think it will be, or is it a matter of fact they're just going to roll the SEC in Tennessee and they want the rematch against Oregon?
I don't know how any Ohio State fan would think this would be easy. All you have to do is look at the regular season finale against Michigan, who they just can't beat. Having said that, I look for more of a low-scoring affair here. You know, these defenses are both very good, and I think that they'll both will dominate this game. And I don't think we're going to see the scoreboard light up too much. I just think these teams are going to play a close to the vest, right down to the wire type of contest. If I had an early lean, I would take the points in this situation. Tennessee's not going to be intimidated going to the shoe. Okay, it's not like SMU going to Penn State and playing before 100,000 people and something they've never been exposed to or used to. Tennessee plays before 100,000 people 7 times a year at home. You know, so I like a little bit of a lean toward the under early on here.
All right, leaning towards the under. I'm kind of with you. That Tennessee defense is legit, and they have been all season long. Bryan, how about you, though, in this one? Will Howard, redemption tour, maybe? Are you worried about the look ahead, knowing, listen, they thought they'd be playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship, and boy, did they screw the pooch on that one. But they will have an opportunity if they win this game. What do you think this is ultimately going to come down to with these two teams?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the look ahead. They're in the playoffs, so that's not something that I think is going to come into it. This is just the 3rd ranked team the Volunteers have played this year, and they're playing the SEC. That's something you don't see very often. They beat Alabama 24-17, losing to Georgia 31-17. It was mentioned the defense. The defense has been outstanding. They allow just 13.9 points per game. Only Georgia and Vanderbilt surpassed 18 points against this defense. The offense put up 191 points combined the first 3 weeks. After that, it hasn't been nearly as effective when they're stepping up in class. The offense, which looked to be coming into the season, maybe a record-breaking offense, has struggled when they've played better teams. Ohio State's faced Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana when it comes to ranked teams. And before the loss to Michigan, this line probably would have been 10. Now, many are calling for the coach's head here, and we've talked about this all season long. Because if you don't beat Michigan, you don't stick around at Ohio State. But keep in mind, Ohio State has dominated everyone other than Michigan in his tenure. But all the pressure is on Ohio State here. If Ohio State gets knocked out in the first round and loses to Michigan, say goodbye to that coach. He's gone. I made this line 7. It's about where I thought it was going to be. The under, if I was going to take a look at this game, the under seems to be the best way to approach it.
I love it. Yep, I'm with you there. In agreement with Ross that the under would be the only look there. And Teddy, now that you're done betting the North Carolina win total up and over next year, oh, please don't even get me started with that. What do you think, Ohio State, Ryan? Does Tennessee come into this thing? Not a lot of pressure. You're a 7.5 point dog. Feels like all the pressure is on one side here still with Ohio State.
It probably is. But again, we don't want to be too influenced by what we just saw in the last ball game. And yeah, Ohio State against Michigan had one of the dumbest game plans you'll ever see. All right. Let's not stretch the field. Let's let Michigan stack the box and let's hand the ball off again and again. I would expect it was a stupid game plan, and it cost them the game. Good news for my Wolverines. But other than that, it's certainly not a scenario in which Ohio State is not an offense we can trust. Their game plan was bad. Sidewise, I don't trust either of these two teams. I don't. But total-wise, I'm going to disagree with all three of you and make a case for the over in this ball game. And it starts with the fact that Ohio State, in their last game, had a really stupid game plan, and they only scored 10 points. So one would anticipate, one would think, a coach that's trying to keep his job in Ryan Day, a staff that's trying to keep their job, if Day goes, they're going to go, that we would see a more aggressive game plan this time. Take some shots downfield. It's not like they don't have a quarterback, not like they don't have playmakers at receiver. I would expect to see Ohio State taking shots. And both of these teams have playmakers. Guy, they can score on offense, they can score on defense, they can score on special teams. I see touchdowns. I see big plays. And I would expect points in this one. I like the over for Ohio State and Tennessee. I haven't seen a weather forecast yet. It's a little early for that still. But if the weather's fine, I may well get involved with this one as well.
Yeah, just watch them try to hand off left, hand off right again. This is going to end up well for Ryan Day and company here. My goodness. All right, there you got it, guys. A little peek behind the curtain here of all of these big-time college playoff games. The first time 12 teams in college football, and you heard the guys, each and every one of them. They have a history of being extremely profitable this time of year in college football. Take advantage of that 149 deal right now. All access, every bowl pick through the national championship. Visit Ross Benjamin. Visit Bryan Leonard, of course. Visit Teddy Covers. Make sure you smash that like button for us. Make sure you give us that thumbs up. And, of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We've got you covered now through the national championship here on WagerTalk TV. We'll have much more as it progresses next week here. And then, of course, heading into the holidays, boy, oh boy, there'll be a lot to discuss. But in the meantime, we appreciate Ross, Bryan, and Teddy. We appreciate you guys stopping by. Get ready. NBA tip-off show coming your way in about 10 minutes. Loaded slate there tonight. We'll have you covered with some best bets and an Andy Lang same game parlay. It's coming up here, guys. Best of luck. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you again next week.